In this video, we discuss an overview of political conflict regarding the meaning of the Constitution itself. Matthew 12:25 says,
And Jesus knew their thoughts and said unto them,
Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand.
This is the scripture Abraham Lincoln referenced in his famous House Divided speech regarding American slavery and the coming Civil War. In our day, we are also divided. Randy Barnett said,
Americans today are divided politically, ideologically, and culturally. Americans are also divided about the Constitution itself.
Isn't the Constitution supposed to be a unifying document? How are we divided today over the Constitution?
At its core, this debate is about the meaning of the first three words of the Constitution, we the people. Those who favor the democratic Constitution view we the people as a group, as a body, as a collective entity. Those who favor the Republican Constitution view we the people as individuals. This choice of visions has enormous real-world consequences.
The words Democratic Constitution versus a Republican Constitution are not describing specific political parties. Instead, think of these terms as political ideas of individualism versus collectivism in a discussion on the origin of where rights come from. The core question arising from the words we the people is, does government grant rights or does government protect rights? How you answer this question depends on which theory of justice you adhere to. The natural rights definition or the social good definition. The social good definition would declare rights as hands-on, give me. The natural rights definition would declare rights as hands-off, don't tread on me. A primacy of consciousness interpretation says that the collective consciousness of the group has primacy, and the government is there to redistribute benefits according to majority will. Eternalism and Latter-day Saint doctrine firmly declares a we the people interpretation based on individual natural rights, which derives from primacy of reality. This means rights are independent of government or the collective, and the primary role of government is to protect these individual rights from intrusion.
Another term you'll hear describing we the people is called popular sovereignty.
Popular sovereignty, the doctrine that sovereign power is vested in the people, and that those chosen to govern, as trustees of such power, must exercise it in conformity with the general will.
The problem is that the phrases vested in the people and general will can mean different things to different people. So what are the attributes of a democratic constitution versus Republican constitution? Under a democratic version, popular sovereignty means rule by the people as a collective. Under a Republican version, popular sovereignty resides in people as individuals. A democratic version starts with a collective vision of we the people, which in practice can only be the will of the majority. First comes government, then comes individual rights granted by government. A Republican version starts with the natural and inalienable rights of equal sovereign individuals preceding the formation of governments. First comes individual rights and then comes government to protect those rights.
A democratic constitution is a living constitution whose meaning evolves to align with contemporary popular desires so that today's majority is not bound by what is called the dead hand of the past. The will of yesterday's majority cannot override the will of the majority today. Under a Republican constitution, to ensure that these servants remain within their just powers, this lawmaking power itself must be limited by law. The Republican Constitution then provides the law that governs those who govern us, each of whom must swear a solemn oath to obey this Constitution. In short, under a Republican Constitution, the meaning of the written Constitution must remain the same until it is properly changed, which is another way of saying that the written Constitution must be interpreted according to its original meaning until it is properly amended.
But isn't the history of America a fight for democracy? Yes and no. Our Republican Constitution contains democratic elements, but there is a huge difference between pure democracy and a republic which incorporates democratic principles.
The fact that our Republican Constitution has democratic elements does not make it what I am calling a democratic constitution. The bare fact that a particular form of government has elected legislators or an elected president does not by itself tell us whether it is a democracy or a republic. Representative government is consistent with both conceptions of popular sovereignty. It is important to recognize that the Democratic and Republican views of popular sovereignty and we the people are ultimately incompatible. Were the founders really against democracy? You bet. They blame the problems in the states under the Articles of Confederation on an excess of democracy.
The founders had their fill of the turbulence, changeableness, and follies of complete democracy living under the Articles of Confederation. So within the framework of a Republican Constitution, the founders kept the democratic elements of majority will. However, majority will in a republic is not absolute. It operates within limits where every citizen is sovereign, not just those in the majority.
So what's the problem with direct democracy, where the collective will of the majority is absolute? Majority will can easily become tyrannical. Once direct democracy is exposed for the mob rule that it truly is, it becomes outrageous. It has been said that a democracy is two wolves and a lamb voting on what to have for lunch. Liberty is a well-armed lamb exercising its Second Amendment rights to self-protection. Democracy is also far too easily hijacked by those who desire to vote themselves into power through irresponsible manipulation of the public treasury.
A democracy cannot exist as a permanent form of government. It can only exist until the majority discovers it can vote itself largesse out of the public treasury. After that, the majority always votes for the candidate promising the most benefits, with the result the democracy collapses because of the loose fiscal policy ensuing, always to be followed by a dictatorship, then a monarchy.
A consequence of the ever-growing welfare statism and the majority voting themselves benefits from the public treasury is that it comes with the belief that the government's purpose is to spend money on benefit programs with little concern for national debt. During World War I, the national debt became such a concern that Congress enacted a formal debt ceiling to which they were bound by law to stay below.
A statutorily imposed debt ceiling has been in effect since 1917, when the U.S. Congress passed the Second Liberty Bond Act. Before 1917, there was no debt ceiling in force, but there were parliamentary procedural limitations on the amount of debt that could be issued by the government.
What has been the consequence of this debt ceiling enactment? The drunken joyride of national debt just keeps going and going, with Congress continually voting to increase the debt limit.
Congress has lifted or suspended the limit more than 84 times since its establishment.
We should be reminded of the joke that goes like this. A guy jumps off a 55-story building and halfway down says, "So far, so good." Except where we are with our national debt isn't a joke. Entitlement programs and the United States embracing welfare state-ism are accelerating to where our national debt is growing exponentially now. The following is a chart of the rise of American national debt since 1900.
The chart shows that the debt ceiling didn't even hit $1 trillion until 1982. Since then, it's increased exponentially.
How long can this continue? Who will pay back the debt? Our unborn children and grandchildren will inherit a great financial burden. This isn't only an inflationary debt problem, it is a justice problem. It is unjust to spend money now that our children and grandchildren will have to pay back during their lifetimes.
George Bernard Shaw said,
"A government that robs Peter to pay Paul can always depend on the support of Paul."
benefiting one group through the violation of rights of another group is plunder, not benevolence. Frederick Bastiat said,
But how is this legal plunder to be identified? Quite simply, see if the law takes from some persons what belongs to them and gives it to other persons to whom it does not belong. See if the law benefits one citizen at the expense of another by doing what the citizen himself cannot do without committing a crime.
President Ezra Taft Benson said,
I fear for the future when I realize that our once free institutions, political, economic, educational, and social, have been drifting into the hands of those who favor the welfare state and who would centralize all power in the hands of the political apparatus in Washington. This enhancement of political power at the expense of individual rights, so often disguised as democracy or freedom or civil rights, is socialism, no matter what name tag it bears.
Socialism is shared misery. Dressing socialism up as democratic socialism is just democratizing misery. To understand the true nature of socialism and the welfare state, we need to revisit the concepts of license and tyranny. License is lack of due restraint, excessive freedom, an excuse or justification to do something wrong. What is the difference between liberty and license? License is when individuals infringe on the liberty and rights of each other. What is the difference between liberty and tyranny? Tyranny is when the government infringes on the liberty and rights of its citizens.
To better understand this issue of legalized plunder called tyranny, think about the actions of a common street thug. Criminals who through use of force take away your property which is needed to sustain your life. Obviously, we would assume the thief does not have the liberty to do this. We call it license. Now consider the modern welfare state. If a street thug were to forcibly take your property, this act would certainly be considered immoral and criminal. Yet there are those who have no moral problem with the government using majority rule and force to confiscate and redistribute wealth. We call this tyranny. Isn't this simply legalized plunder? Direct democracy or majoritarianism is just another name for mob rule. To ask, what is the proper role of government, is really to ask, what is the proper role of force? Is the purpose of government to forcibly redistribute wealth, or is the purpose of government to restrict excessive liberty, or what we call license, of those who would tread on natural rights? The Founding Fathers clearly understood this issue. James Madison said,
The essence of government is power, and power, lodged as it must be in human hands, will ever be liable to abuse.
Government is force that needs to be handled carefully like fire. In the end, legal plunder in the name of redistributing wealth undermines a civil society.
The restored gospel of Jesus Christ is very much about the individual, not the collective. The primacy issue of man, state, or individual, collective, is an eternal issue that will be with us forever. This was the essence of the premortal war we all fought in. It is the essence of the war we are still fighting today. The Latter-day Saint political view, upholding individualism, is foundational. It is a radical departure from the false traditions, coercive institutions, and collective mentality of historical mankind. Statists of various stripes would have it the other way around. Statists give primacy to the state over man, to the collective over the individual. Collectivism is Lucifer's version of mass salvation. Collectivism not only ignores the individual, but oppresses and tyrannizes the individual through force, robbing the individual of agency. Elder John A. Ewitso said,
The gospel is concerned with individual salvation, not mass salvation. Lucifer proposed mass salvation, willy-nilly, without individual effort. Every man should be saved, irrespective of his desire or fitness. The Lord also offered salvation to all, but on the condition that each individual, by accepting the conditions imposed under God's never-ending love, must earn his salvation. Lucifer ignored the individual. The gospel makes the individual paramount. Great is the individual man in the plan of the Lord.
Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe to the Christian Eternalism YouTube channel and visit christianeternalism.org.